Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you back, and this is going to be the final video in the series that covers all the large, low-profile bait casting reels. I covered the Lexa 300 and 400, the Tranx 400 and 500, and the Abu Revo Toro Beast. And the missing piece of the puzzle was the Okuma Komodo. So I've had one here for a little bit now. I've been able to put all the reels that I reviewed through their paces, whether it was through throwing swim baits, whether it was plugging for stripers, plugging for bluefish, chunking for bass and bluefish. I've been really able to get a good sense of what each reel does well and where they kind of fall flat. So if you like what you see going forward, hit that like button, please. If you haven't already, subscribe. And if you want to make a purchase as far as whether it's the Komodo, the Tranx, the Lexa, check the links in the description below. I'm an Amazon affiliate now, so if you want to help out my channel, any purchase you make through those links, and a little dirty secret, if you hit those links and go to Amazon, even if you don't buy what the link is linking to, I get a piece of the action. So hey, if you guys want to hook a brother up, you're shopping for some shoes or a computer, click on one of my links and then go buy whatever you're shopping for. But anyway, so hey, any help is, hey, I'm shameless, I guess. Oh well. But with all that being said, this is the final piece of the puzzle, and I have mixed feelings on this reel. For the past couple weeks, I've been fishing this reel, and I found that it is a good fishing reel. It's a pathetic caster. But after I did the review, see, I did this a little bit differently this time around. I filmed an intro, did the teardown and the reassembly kind of stuff. But when I did the teardown, I found a way to improve distance. So then I went out, saw how she threw, and I picked up 10%. So not being able to hit 75 yards, 80 yards with the way it was out of the box, I'm getting more consistent 80 to 90. So I'm getting roughly a solid 10% just by cleaning out the grease that was on the level wind, the grease that was on the bushing that runs the level wind idler, and kind of oiling the spool bearings a little bit better and oiling the worm gear bearings. So that gave me 10% right there. And that's 30, 40 feet. Yeah, a little less than 30, 40 feet, but hey. So with that said, you're going to see this reel, take it apart. You're going to see what makes it tick. It is a good fishing reel. If you were to ask me, hey, what's the best reel out of the bunch, whether it's the Lexa 300, 400, Tranx 300, 400, the 500, or the Abu, this isn't the best reel out of the bunch at all. The Tranx, far and away, as far as a fishing reel goes, as long as you don't require a clicker, is the best fishing reel. Nobody else comes close. If you find that you absolutely need a clicker, if a clicker is an absolute necessity, I'm buying the Komodo over the Lexa with the clicker. The Komodo's a really good feeling reel. It's not a proprietary reel. I mean, you can go out and reach out to the manufacturer who builds this reel and say, okay, I have my own brand. Can you make me 300 of these reels? And I want this side plate to look this way and this side plate to look this way. I want this and that. This is just an assumption. I might be wrong. But that 13 fishing, the Concept C, looks very familiar to this one. A little bit different, but I'd bet a Komodo. I'd bet Ryan's Komodo that they're built in the same plant. And it's the same thing as the Tailwalk Elan bait casting reel as well. So again, it's not a proprietary reel like you would find in the Lexa or the Shimano Tranx, but it's a good reel. If you really need a clicker, I'm going with the Komodo. But for every single other application, I'm going with the Tranx. The Tranx feels like a high-end bait casting reel. Every other reel, whether it's the Abu, whether it's the Daiwa Lexa, they feel like they're just bigger versions of kind of a mediocre bait caster. Whereas the Tranx, it feels like a Metanium, only bigger. If you kind of get my drift. It was the best caster of the bunch. I like the drag, how you can go from free spool almost, a clicker strength drag setting. So if I set the clicker to this, it's what, 6 ounces of drag. With the Tranx, I can set the drag star, I can set the drag to 6 ounces or whatever it might be, and then go boom, and now I'm setting the hook and fighting the fish, and that's it. It just ramps up that quick. That kind of negates, for me anyway, the need for a clicker. For me, some guys, spike their rods up when they're chunking, whether it's for catfish or stripers or bluefish, and they need to hear it. Then yeah, if you need to hear it, you gotta have a clicker. But for all intents and purposes, I ain't spider rigging for striped bass. I'm not putting out 3-4 rods anymore. I'm generally spiking and standing next to it or holding the rod if I'm chunking. If I'm plugging, this reel, no. This reel is dead last. If I'm fishing for musky, though, this reel comes back into play. So that's why I kind of have mixed feelings on it. It's not a crap reel. When you're musky fishing, you're lucky if you're casting 50 yards, 50, 60 yards. So you don't need otherworldly distance. And I'm not saying the low-profile bait casting reel is the longest casting reel on the planet either. You can go right into some of the Pens, some of the Abus, some of the other Shimano reels, and they'll smoke them in distance. These are level wind reels. So that's automatically choking your distance. But if you're fishing for musky and you're throwing, bucktails, if you're throwing bulldogs and stuff like that, you're not heaving 100 yards. You don't need the crazy distance. The non-disengaging level wind all of a sudden becomes a nice little feature. It's not a necessity, but if you're fishing for musky and you're fishing heavy drag, you're locking down your drag, you're fishing, this is an 80-pound braid, and you get smashed 6 feet off the rod tip, you ram a hook set. It's nice to know that when you're dealing with these broomstick rods, and I'm not sure if you swim bait guys or striped bass guys ever use dedicated musky rods. I'm not a fan of them. The actions are just too fast. There's just not enough give in the tip. They're true pull cues. I had the St. Croix Legend Tournament muskie. It was, I think, 8 foot. It was rated to 3 pounds. It was a legitimate broomstick. And if you smashed a hook set and the line came out about 2 feet, and all of a sudden the line, instead of coming off the spool, even with the level winds on the other side, you don't have any give in the tip. You could damage the pawl or the pawl for the level wind. So having a non-disengaging level wind is a good feature for musky guys. Is it necessity? Not really, because some of the other reels, the low-profile reels, the level wind's elongated further away from the spool, so the amount of force pushing on the side when you ram a hook set, if it's not in line, isn't as bad as it could be, but it's a nice little feature. Does it kill your distance with these narrow spools? Yeah, it does. But so this reel, that's why I have mixed opinions on this reel. But if I'm shopping for a reel tomorrow, I'm always shopping for reels, especially lately. I'm buying everything. I'm going broke, legitimately. I'm spending a lot of money on all this stuff. So all you guys out there, if you want to help support me on the Patreon page that I got going, hey, I appreciate what you guys have helped so far with my Patreon contributions. I can use some more. But, hey, if I'm shopping for a reel tomorrow, for a plugging reel, I'm buying a Tranx. If I'm jigging, not tuna, dropping down jigs for bass, I'm buying the Tranx 300 or 400. If I'm bottom fishing, if I'm dropping down a pound of lead for tog or blackfish, black sea bass, I'm probably going with the Tranx 500. Because you're using 50-pound braid, you're using heavy leaders. Even though your hooks are kind of light and the drop for your lead might be a little light, you still got to break off that snag. The Tranx 500 is the king of breaking off snags. the other reels, the Lexa 300 and 400, the Komodo, they just don't offer the same kind of spool support that the Tranx 500 does. The Tranx 300 and 400 do offer a bit more support. So if I'm bottom fishing, if I don't need a clicker, I might lean more towards the 300 and 400 over the Komodo if I'm looking for a do-all. I'll lean towards the 300 400 Tranx over the Daiwa Lexa 300 and 400. And same goes with the Abu. And let me say it again a little bit differently. The Abu, the spool is supported very well. So I may put this up against the 300 400 Tranx. The 500's in a different realm. So again, that's why I have mixed opinions on this reel. So the number one reel out of the bunch is the new Tranx. Sorry. If you were hoping for, the Komodo, if you're hoping for the Lexa or the Beast, this is a little bit different now that I've put a lot more time. I put time on all the other reels prior to that last review, but now I've really got a good idea of what these reels are capable of and what they do well and what they don't do well. So at the end of the day, I think I'm buying Tranxes from here on out. For musky fishing, you can get by with the Tranx 400 or 300. Guys, don't kid yourself. Just because it says Tranx, it doesn't mean that you're getting that same high-end torque with crazy high speed that the giant 500 offers. If you expect that, you'll be greatly disappointed. I don't want you guys thinking you're going to go out and throw giant bucktails with a Tranx 400 and get this same exact high speed with ease that you would get on the Tranx 500. That's not the case, but it still is a pretty torquey reel for a fast reel. So if I'm buying a large low profile bait caster, I'm buying the Tranx. So with all that said, here comes the teardown of the Okuma, if you guys are even gonna watch it. I should have done that. I don't know what order I should have gone. This is why this was a little bit difficult to do as far as adding this to the review, because now I already know what the other reels are like, how they fish, and then this is now coming in from behind. So enjoy. I appreciate your guys' time. I know your time is valuable. I've had a little bit of a hiatus trying to see what my baseline is. I'm trying to build a website, so that's why you haven't seen me post as much. I'm not a web designer, so... Alright, so let's get this party started, and I'm going to go ahead and remove all the screws, and we're going to open her up. Now, this, out of all of the other bait casters, right from the word go is different. All of the screws that go into, or that keep the side plate attached to the frame, they're all very specific. At least that's what I'm finding. So be very mindful how you take the screws out, because you don't want to spend or waste any more time than you have to when you're putting them back in. So I like to kind of orient the reel like this and place the screws where they would go. So this was the first screw that I removed. That went here. This is the second one I removed. That went down here. I'm going to go ahead and pop the side plate off. Like so. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the screw here. There's two screws on the inside of the spool flange. And again, orienting like that, we can see that it's the right hand side. And then the last screw. Sometimes tweezers help with these little guys. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this out and make room, so I don't want to disrupt them. So we have the 4 screws. And you can see here, this is what turns the level wind gear when it's in free spool, or when the drag is being taken out. Comes apart very simply. And you can see that anti-reverse clutch, it looks familiar as it's been used on the Tranx and the Abu. It looks identical. The sleeve does indeed fit the Tranx. So inside we have ourselves a bait casting reel. Nothing out of the ordinary. Oops. This is about as straightforward as they come. Again, 2 springs to keep it from re-engaging on the cast. And that's, again, that's a feature that's found in dirt cheap bait casters that run 10, 20, 30 bucks. So, nothing to get excited over. And one thing you'll find is the in and out play here, not much at all. Very well supported down here. I believe it's shimmed, so let's real quick take a peek. And again, if there is a little bit of in and out play, that's fine. This kind of adds to the more or less the refined feel of the reel. If you have a lot of in and out play, kind of gives it a cheapy feeling. No, it doesn't even look really to be shimmed. Just your standard C-clip on the base of the bearing. Cool. This is your worm gear for the level wind. Keep in mind also this has a single anti-reverse redundant or backup anti-reverse dog that gets mounted to that post here. When I reinstall it, you'll see. I'm going to remove the chin plate real quick. Now this is a good fishing reel. It's a pretty much a pathetic casting reel. It does not cast well at all. I don't care what anybody on the interweb says. If you want a long distance casting reel, sorry, this is not it. Every other reel that I compared previously can outcast it by 100 feet. Plain and simple. There's no sugarcoating it. It just is not a very good casting reel. And that has to do with how narrow the spool is. How narrow the spool is being a non-disengaging level wind. So every time you make a cast, this level wind is spinning. So the spool, or I should say the lure, that's pulling the line off the spool has to also pull it against the resistance of the level wind, which doesn't seem like it's really that much, but it's enough. And I have some long casting Abu 6500 non-disengaging level wind reels that can throw 140 yards, with some upgrades and mods. This isn't one of them. And it's a fast level wind, it really is. Hang on one second, let me just get this clip off. Alright. This is a very fast level wind. I mean, I can go back and forth with my finger on the line guide and it spins the spool no problem. A lot of Abu Garcias, you actually have to do some upgrades to get that to happen. And you can see, it's a dual ball bearing level wind. So it's supported very well. You got the bearing here and the bearing here. go ahead and that's about as far as I'm going to go as far as the level wine's concerned. No need to go any further and waste any of your time. I'm going to pop that back on. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward baitcaster besides having that non-disengaging level wind. And with the low profiles, how they're designed, having that level wind kind of further out, and it must just be because of the way they do the clicker. I'm a believer that there's got to be better ways to design a clicker into a reel that doesn't require a non-disengaging level wind. But that's just me. So, how does it fish? How does it wind? How's the torque on it? How does it feel when retrieving in current and fighting fish? It's one of the better feeling reels under load. I had the opportunity to put some nice bass and some striped bass and some nice bluefish on this reel, and it's got a decent amount of torque regardless of the gear ratio. I liked it. It was a good fishing reel, but I was chunking, and there weren't any times where I'm looking at a slick in the water or a pot of bunker trying to heave out a super strike, little neck sinking popper or a big bonga jerk, where I'm trying to, there weren't any opportunities where I was trying to get 75 to 125 yards of distance. When I field tested this, I was finding out just how horrendously it really cast compared to the others. Even the Lexa 300, the little Lexa with heavy braid, outcast this. I tried a few different types of braids with this reel just to see if maybe the heavy braid was kind of decreasing the diameter of the spool too quick and acting as a natural brake as the line capacity got lower. It didn't make a difference. I couldn't break 100 yards with it. I really couldn't. And with one brake on, trying to lean into some of the casts, I blew it up. I had this spool almost spool to the lip, and there's about 80 yards of braid missing due to two backlashes that occurred about 40 yards, 50 yards out. And it wasn't those kind of backlashes that you can kind of thumb away, like it kind of starts getting a little squirrely and then kind of dissipates. No, it was going 100 miles an hour and then kaboom, instant snap off. So, not a fan as far as really trying to lean into it with one brake on. Once you add the second brake on, well, actually, if you cast hard enough, the brakes here can actually engage on their own. I don't know how. It seems like they're pretty tight, but I started off with what I thought was two brakes, made a couple casts. I noticed that one of the casts went kind of short and seemed very tame. Opened it up to go down to one brake, and there were three that were active. I'm like, all right, so I clicked it down to two, and then I clicked it down to one, and I kept on casting. And again, I noticed there was a much tamer cast, and I opened it back up. Voila! Instead of having one brake on, I had two now. So I don't know if that's a quality control issue where some of the little arms on the spring don't really grab very well when you lock them in the off position, but it is what it is. It happened. So I'm reporting on it. That's pretty much it. So yeah, aside from that, it's pretty straightforward. It's a well-built reel. I mean, it's one of those OEM reels. There's a few different versions of this reel out there from different companies. I'm not going to get into that. And they have the cheaper version of this reel too, which I believe is pretty similar. The only difference being it's brass gear instead of stainless, and it doesn't have one of the level wind ball bearings, so it's got a bushing, which is fine. This reel casts poorly enough when you lose 5 feet. So, I mean, again, anybody who's had Abu, level wind or non-disengaging level wind round reels knows that you can upgrade the ball bearings. You do get distance. If there's 1 versus 2, it's if you're tricking out your reel, you add the second ball bearing. You're not gaining a whole extra football field worth of casting distance. So, just something thrown out there. But yeah, it's a nice little reel. I'm not beating up on it saying it's a piece of crap. It's a sturdy reel. It really is. It's a well-designed reel for what it is. It's a well-supported reel. The pinion is supported on its top end here. You can see the pinion is supported up here. So it does have some support, which is a nice little added bonus. And yeah, it's a baitcaster that holds a decent capacity. The drag I found was pretty good. And let's go over the drag stack real quick. Heavily greased carbon washers. Your basement here is on the drive gear itself. Again, heavily greased. And it's a decent quality carbon washer. It doesn't seem to be papery. Here's your eared washer. And again, this is something that some companies are moving away from, but I really like this fiber washer here. It gives a little bit of stickiness to the drag. At least that's what I find. And I like that because with a 100% carbon fiber drag stack, you set it to 5 pounds. It seems to always be 5 pounds. You don't have that 6.5 pound inertia startup that you have to overcome when you set the hook. I like that little extra oomph required. Not a sticky drag, but sometimes when you set the hook, that abrupt jar, you kind of like that extra stick, because if you're using an 8.0 hook or a 10.0 hook with a, if it's a 4X Gamakatsu, live bait hook or whatever you're using, to get that big hook, thick wire diameter hook to get past the barb, sometimes that extra little stick is good. Because again, face it, we're all using 40-pound braid, 30-pound braid, 50-pound braid with heavy leaders, so we're not cracking off any fish if our drag rating's off by a pound. All right, now with the Komodo and the time that I've spent on it and having it apart finally, I can honestly say I think I'm done with reviewing all the big low-profile baitcasting reels. Yeah, there's a Citrix. The Citrix is essentially the same reel, minus the stainless and a ball bearing and the level wind. Is this a better reel than the Citrix? Of course it is. It's got different, stronger metal gears and an extra ball bearing. But that extra ball bearing in this doesn't help it make it be a good caster. So, all right. How do I stack this against the Abu, Revo Toro Beast, the Lexa 300 and 400, the Tranx 300, 400, and the Tranx 500? If you're throwing plugs and lures, don't buy this reel. If you're fishing bait off of a boat or dropping down jigs, buy this reel. Simple as that. Every other reel in this segment will outcast this easily. And it's not by a little, small margin. Field testing and field casting on a measured field, just using the same 3-ounce lure. This reel, no matter what break setting I put it on, I'm outcasting it by up to 100 feet. That's not a short distance. 100 feet's significant. I could not break 100 yards with this reel. I'm sure if I put a 5-ounce or a 4-ounce bank sinker on, I can hit 100 yards. I've tried 30, 40, 60, and 80-pound braid on it, and I still couldn't get it to break 100 yards. Whereas the Lexa 300, 400, Tranx, Abu, Tranx 500 easily hit 100 yards. No problems at all. Not a good caster, but it's a good fishing reel. So with the narrow-ish frame compared to the Lexa 400 and the Revo Toro Beast, it fishes better. So if you have a rod that doesn't have a palm support grip or a trigger or a thin foregrip, the narrower the reel, the less fatigue you're going to experience with the arm holding the rod. So when you're winching that fish in, I found with the wider reels, the Lexa 400 and the Abu, I had to kind of claw just to make it so if I'm winching in a fish against heavy current, reeling down on fish, or just, you know, reeling up a plastic bag, it feels like the narrower framed reels allow me to fish more comfortably, longer. And when you're making hundreds of casts a night, this, you know, not talking bait and weight where you make 10 casts a night on each rod. When you're making a couple hundred casts, it makes a difference. And when you're making consecutive casts and hooking up with 12 to 15 to 20 plus pound bluefish, it goes a long way, especially since the bluefish and the striped bass for the past 2 weeks have been off the hook. It makes a difference. I stopped fishing the Abu Revo Toro Beast because I'm like, you know what? I have so many other reels in here that are much more comfortable to fish. Goodbye. So I put that one down, put the Tranx 300 on, had a blast with that. Fished the Lexa 300, had a blast with that. And had a blast with this as well. And that's kind of where I found out that the distance out of this thing when I'm throwing like a Super Strike low neck popper or a big pencil or a big swimmer, the distance was not here. So when you're aiming for oil slicks 100 yards out and it's marauding bass and bluefish on bunker or herring, you're not going to be able to reach them with this reel. So this time of year, that's very important. I mean, half the time the schools are 75 yards out. If you can't hit them, you can't catch a fish. So, sorry. But again, if you're dropping down jigs, if you're bottom fishing, great reel. So I can now officially put to bed the large low-profile bait casting comparison series. I'm going to say the best ones out of the bunch so far got to be the Tranx. It's a hell of a reel. It doesn't break a sweat. It really doesn't. It's a fishing machine. It's exactly what you want in a low-profile conventional reel. And that super fast 0 to 60, or like 0 pounds to setting a hook drag setting, with the way that the Tranx has that star drag setup, man, is that a sweet setup. Well designed. That's a feature that not many people are talking about when it comes to that reel. To me, that is just as important as the waterproofing or the sealing that goes on in that reel. To be able to turn that drag star half a turn and to go from free spool essentially or live lining strength to setting the hook strength and fighting strength, that's huge. That's like a lever drag built into a star drag. So yeah, first place, definitely going with the new Tranx. It really is the best out of the bunch. I can honestly say that now after putting quite a bit of time on those reels that they're better. For plugging, they cast just as good, if not better, than the Lexa and the Abu. The Abu can outthrow the 300 Daiwa, depending on the settings. The 400 outthrows the Abu. This is the shortest caster of the bunch. So yeah, I'm going to go, if it were me and how I fish, I'm going Tranx. And if the Tranx is first, I don't need the Daiwa. So I'm going Tranx, Komodo, Daiwa, Abu, in that order. If I didn't have the Tranx, I'm going Daiwa, Komodo, Abu. So, yeah. Nice little reel. All right, and for those of you who have made it this far, I thank you for your time spent here. You've heard me say it before in my other videos. I greatly appreciate your time and I respect your time. The last thing I want to do is waste it. I know how valuable everybody's time is, and spending a half hour watching me hold a fishing reel and talk about a fishing reel, yeah, it's watching somebody talk about fishing reel. So, I greatly appreciate you guys spending your time here. If you're not a subscriber, do me that favor and hit that subscribe button. That way you can be notified of when I post new content. If this was helpful in any way, shape, or form, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want to support my channel, you can do it in multiple ways now. You can go to my Patreon account and, subscribe, I guess, where you pay a monthly fee to, to support my channel. If you can't do that, if you're shopping on eBay or Amazon and you're interested in any of these reels or anything in general, if you click the links in the description, it's basically just an Amazon or an eBay affiliate link. I'm not really pushing any store. I'm not, being paid by the manufacturers to post them, but whatever you guys buy off those links, I get a cut of the action. That helps support my channel. I can't make a living off of Google AdSense and views alone, so getting a piece of the action on the back end in the form of a little commission, greatly helpful. So thank you guys. Thank you for your time. I'll see you soon. Take care.